Okay, people, I should really be thanking you that in a record time. In fact, I think in half a minute, maximum 1 minute, we have reached a total number of 39, 40 students who are attending the lecture right now today. Welcome back to your classes in geography, English medium as such. I um was just busy conducting my PG classes, my MSc classes just before that. Normally, I was taking it from 9 to 10, but then I realized that I have my BA class today as such, and that's why I had to cut down their time, and I had to shift here. I had to close down one meeting. I have to start one meeting, but done is done. You'll see that within 5 minutes we have all come together. Just going back to a few things that we need to uh, underline is the fact that we are done with the first semester, and it's a credit to every one of us. It's the credit to you students particularly. It's the credit to you, all your teachers, not myself only, but all your teachers, English medium, Marathi medium, all teachers, the college administration, the exam department. Yes, there have been a lot of difficulties that we have been having, but eventually we all of us have put together a great effort, and we have successfully completed one semester of your first year, in spite of the fact that the corona pandemic, of course, has not waved off. In the time between, actually, what has happened is we now have a vaccine, but let me tell you that a vaccine is not a medicine. Okay, that's a very important thing that one has to remember. A vaccine is not a medicine. So until and unless we actually have a medicine, I personally believe that we should not be free. But I believe that majority of the Indians thought that vaccination is something that is similar to a medicine as such. I believe most of y'all know what actually a vaccination is and how it differs from a medicine as such. Vaccination is basically a small proportion of the same germ. They take the same germ. It could be bacteria, it could be a virus. They take a very small proportion of it, and they inject it into your body so that the body starts memorizing. It's a very small proportion, so the body can always overcome that, and that's why you'll see that the body will know how to fight it. Okay, if the percentage of the virus tends to increase in your body as such, so the body, the antibody thing that we always speak about is actually that aspect. And in fact, you'll see that uh, some people have been complaining that there have been their arms pain, and there has been a mild fever immediately after vaccination. Is basically something that comes up, the antibody generation mechanism of your body. It runs much faster, and that's why you'll see that you may run a bit of temperature, and you may feel low for a couple of days as such. But of course, most of y'all are under 20, so most of y'all are not allowed a vaccine as of now as such. But I would still tell you all that please take care, proper care of yourself as such. I'm saying this basically because something that we were doing last time and something that we are going to start doing this time is much different. From physical geography, we are actually moving into human geography as such, and the context of the pandemic, etc., is very important here. But then going back to what we have achieved in the last 6 months, as I said, that due congratulations to all of you all that you successfully have given papers, written papers. It may be MCQ, but then that's how it has been. Yes, it's unfortunate that you were not able to come to the college and enjoy the what we call as college life. Okay, you'll see that every student who comes from school and junior college has always been longing for what exactly college life is all about. And for a college like SP, yes, it would have been fantastic to have you all offline into the campus and in those huge classrooms that we have in the college as such. But yes, this pandemic is restricting us from say gathering together. But yeah, as I said earlier, also that all of us need to be congratulated in spite of the fact that the numbers of corona infections are increasing once again. The reasons could be any and many, but the most important thing is the fatality rate has gone down. Maybe we have learned a lot many things about this particular virus in times to come. Yes, one thing we have known is there are variants of this particular virus, and it is this thing that has come helpful to us as far as prohibiting or controlling the expansion of this is concerned, or studying the spread of this particular pandemic is concerned, and a lot of these things need to be understood from those from that point of view also as such. Okay, coming back to the fact that I had posted your internal marks in the group as such. I had asked you all. I don't know whether I commented on it, but then I wanted you all to go through those marks as such. And having gone through those marks, I also wanted you all to just check whether your names and your internal marks, because I had shared your internal marks with you all. So are they tallying properly as such? And if they are tallying properly, obviously this could have been uh, if and of course if they are not tallying, then we could have we should be actually being looking into uh, those aspects also. But since I have not seen many reflections into that aspect, I would consider that most of you all do not have any serious problem as far as the whole issue of internal markings is concerned. I was very worried about those internal markings, basically because of the fact that what um I can tell you all is that 40 marks is a significant number, and if you are going to miss out on those 40 marks as such, it could be very difficult to cover up the passing marks as far as the remaining 60% of the marks are concerned as such. Your results are into formation, and very soon these results would definitely be out for us as such. Um, Now, what do we have in store as far as our second semester is concerned? I'll just share it for you all, and hope you are able to see this in your screens as such. This is the syllabus that we are going to follow as far as, I'll just pin it on the screen so that, yeah, this is the syllabus that we are going to follow as far as the second term is concerned. And you'll see that as far as the major topics are concerned: introduction to human geography, population, settlements, and economic geography as such. The reason behind this is, if you see, there is a definite sequence into this. If you remember when we spoke about the geological time scale in the first term, rather for the first semester as such, you'll see that life has been a very late arrival on the surface of this particular planet. Of the 4.6 billion years of age, it's only 600 million years that life has been on this planet. And of the period of which life has been on this planet, human being has been here on for a very small period. It's not, it's around 5 million years, you could say. That's not more than 50 lakh years as such that man has been on this particular planet. So when we are studying geography, it obviously becomes so very logical to study physical geography first. And it is in the physical geography that we have done the land part of it, we have done the air part of it in the atmosphere, and of course a small part of it. But then we did oceanography also as such. The reason that I did explain it then also, that the reason that we were doing less of oceanography is because we referred to oceanography when we started with land. We referred to oceanography when we were speaking about atmosphere, because all of them, if you remember my earlier lectures as such, when I was introducing geography to you, I said that these are zones, or these are systems which are interrelated to each other. Land cannot function without water, and air cannot function without these two as well as such. So there is a continuous interchange of substances, and the most important substance is water, which transfers from oceans to air and back to land, and from land to water as such. And in this process, you have the whole section of geomorphology, the land, the surface things that happen, the foldings and the faultings, and weathering and mass wasting and the rocks, and of course the agents of erosion. We did only one of them, river as such, which is ज्याला आपण मराठीमध्ये प्रतिकात्मक म्हणूया, which is symbolic as such. You'll see that other things also do the same. I had gone into the details of all those, but I think I did not ask any questions on those, the other agents of erosion as such. Then we went into atmosphere, and we spoke about how the atmosphere, the lowest layer, particularly troposphere, as it is called, is the most functional layer of the atmosphere. And we spoke about how man is dependent on this and what happens in the troposphere. We spoke about heat budget, and we spoke about insolation. And gradually, we went into the pressure systems. After pressure systems, we went into the say the pressure belts, as such, the circulation of the atmosphere into three major cells: the Hadley cell, the Ferrel cell, and of course the polar cell as such. And finally, we came to winds, different types of winds, global winds, seasonal winds, and of course, finally, local winds as such. That was a very interesting journey as far as atmosphere is concerned. And then we spoke about oceanography, the share of oceans and land in different hemispheres as such. And having done that, then we went into the oceanic topography, and we also tried to understand how this topography differs and why it differs from land topography as such. So after having done all these things, okay, and all these things minus man have been there literally from the time of the origin of this earth. The proportions could be different. Land could have been less initially. It is now significantly more. That's around what, one-fourth of the surface is land as such. Oxygen was not there. Now you have ample amount of oxygen. But what is most important? Okay, the most important connect between physical geography and human geography is the dependence of human beings on the elements that we have learned in the physical geography. Of course, the first element, that is lithosphere. Man is a land animal. It cannot survive in water, so land becomes extremely important. Now, with this particular reference as such, okay, you'll see that on land, the distribution of population, the type of settlements, okay, will change. And of course, out of this population and settlement distribution as such, the economic geography also will change. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to gradually bring you from a mindset of physical geography into human geography. We are using the common element between them, that's man, how man is dependent on the physical geography aspect for his actual survival as such. So land becomes very important because man is going to occupy land spatially, and the clusters are going to be called as population, and these populations are going to arrange themselves in different ways, and these are called as settlements, which are further divided into rural and urban. And we're going to go into the details of all of this definitely at some point of time as such. But then we cannot go into understanding human geography unless and until we actually have realize the importance of each of those spheres. It could be lithosphere, it could be hydrosphere, it could be atmosphere. And what is the common link? Man is, yes, one common link, but then what is another common link that brings a lot of longevity, which brings a lot of interaction, which brings up a lot of dynamism between the say the natural world and the human world as such, and underlining the fact that the human world making the influencing, I would rather say, the human world in such a way that it tends to be the human world impacts the natural world, and the natural world in its turn tends to impact the human world as well. So uh, this is a very important phase of understanding. I believe we would be going into a few more lectures before actually we go into starting to understand the aspect of human geography. Having said that, uh, we have a guest lecture tomorrow in the evening as such, and the vice chancellor of the Savitribai Phule Pune University is going to address us. Now, the occasion is that the Department of Geography, SP College, is starting with its PhD coursework, which is meant for students who are doing their PhD as such. The inauguration function tomorrow is at 3 o'clock, and the vice chancellor is himself a geologist, and he's going to speak a bit on geomorphology. Sorry, as such, a bit in the sense he's going to have a full lecture as such. So all those who are interested can join this. I'll be posting the link onto the into our group as such. And having said that, because we are going into the preparation of all that, you will not have your lecture tomorrow, your geography lecture, only geography lecture tomorrow as such. And on Saturday, we will have our first lecture, we'll not have our second lecture, we'll have a 7 o'clock lecture, we will not have a 9:30 lecture as such. These are a few mentions that I had to make before I go back to linking how man is related to that as such. Then, speaking about the other two spheres as such, because man is not directly related, yes, there is an intense dependence on all the spheres as such, but then uh, land is something on which man lives on. Okay, but having said this, this does not demean or undermine the importance of atmosphere and hydrosphere at any sense, basically because the second thing that I was speaking about in this whole process is water, because water forms a major element as far as major forms of life are concerned. It could be the smallest microscopic form of life, or it could be the largest form of form and size of life, and that's all the way to the size of the whale, which is the largest animal as such, or the largest tree. It could be largest in the sense of the trunk. It could be the tallest tree. All of these living beings are dependent on water for various aspects as such. Okay, you'll see that because water provides a flow. Okay, and if you remember, I did speak about the fact that water has these various characteristics of its own, and that is why it's called as a magical liquid as such. All the characteristics of water, that it dissolves substances. It, in fact, is the only substance which can be found in all three forms of matter. That's vapor in atmosphere, and of course water in hydrosphere, and of course ice in the form of ice as far as land, particularly the higher latitudes, are concerned. The dependence of human beings on water is significantly known, and in fact, that is what we have to keep as a common thread when we move from topics like, in fact, right from the fact that introduction to human geography to population. Okay, and you'll see that how populations are related to water availability, and then the settlements, how settlements is dependent on water availability. In fact, going further into the having an economized human system, economic geography as such, how is it that or rather how is water as an important aspect when it comes to a very important aspect when it comes to man using it. Okay, you'll see that if you are reading through, if you are able to read through the learning points in it, we're looking at agriculture, we are looking at industry, we are looking at so many other things in economic geography as such. We're looking at primary, secondary, tertiary, quaternary, and quinary activities of man as such, all said and done. Okay, you'll see that all these are man-made activities, and water has a very important thread in through all of this as such. Just to remind you about water, of all that happens in atmosphere, okay, particularly I would say zooming down to the troposphere as such, you'll see that water is the only thing which gives you an output. Okay, because if you remember, I said this when I started with the atmosphere also, that as far as pressure is concerned, you can just feel it. Okay, you just don't you just see it as such. Temperature again is not something that you can quantify. You can't quantify in the sense you can't see it as such. Yes, you can quantify in the sense you can measure the intensity of heat, and that is how temperature is measured as such. But then that's again something. But then as far as and we have seen that when you have different pressures, when you have different temperatures, there is movement of air in between. Along with air, what moves is, along with it is water, and water moves in different forms in the sense that it is going to move dynamically when it's in the atmosphere, and it's going to flow when it's going to be uh, in 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 uh, in the liquid format as such. And what is most important is it is going to float when it is going to be in the solid format. Now, why does it happen that way? That normally you'll see that solids are going to sink in liquids because of the density as such, but it doesn't happen so as far as water is concerned, because you'll see that water is flows in its natural sense. It's in the um, molecular structure of H2O, and you'll see that it forms strings. I'll try to bring up a few diagrams next time if I remember to get back to these things. But then when it freezes, okay, what is called as anomalous behavior of water is a characteristic that water shows once you start freezing it below 4 degrees or 4 degrees centigrade or Celsius as such. What happens is water is actually flowing. Okay, I'll try to simplify it to the max level as such. Water is actually flowing in this way because it's a liquid. It takes the shape of its container. It takes the shape on the substance on it, which it spreads as such. But what happens when it starts freezing below the 4 degrees centigrade is, and what is called as the anomalous behavior of water is, it starts going into a structural format. Now, this structural format, this is the structure.
but you'll see that it has hollows in between. Okay, it has hollows, it has air spaces literally in between, because it is the best fit is of the H2O molecules into each other is in this particular way. So it leaves a lot of gaps in between, and because of this gap, you'll see that this piece of ice, once it falls solidifies, is going to float as such. Now when I'm going to melt this ice, what is going to happen? The moment I'm going to melt this, what happens is water collapses. Okay, the structure collapses. That is how, that is the science of water that you have to understand. And once you understand this, you'll know why ice floats on water as such. Okay, because ice is a skeletal structure with a lot of air spaces in it. But the moment you melt ice, you'll see that water will collapse, and then of course it will start flowing into different directions as such. And it is this water that human beings consume significantly. You'll see that it is always said that you should be drinking at least 3 to 4 liters of water, at minimum of 3 liters of water every day. This intake, you'll see, must have gone up. If you see these days, this intake must have gone up because of the summer season. And in fact, if you, I don't know whether you have been following the news of late, as such, that a heat wave is supposed to be observed for these days, and the temperatures in the eastern parts of Maharashtra are already around 40 degrees, and it is believed that this rise in temperature will soon be seen in the western parts of Maharashtra, including Pune, etc. As such, another thing to mention here is that if you, those of you who are still following the weather and radar map as map app as such, you'll see that the low temperatures. Okay, you have a max and you have the minimum. The minimum temperatures also are on a significant rise, and if I remember, and don't forget, after the lecture, I'll post how the coming 15 days, the minimum temperatures are also going to rise along with the maximum temperatures, which already are on a rise in these days. All these things are need to be taken into consideration when we are studying human geography. And in fact, you'll see that if you are looking at the fifth point here, okay, learning points, contemporary issues in human geography. Contemporary issues include, just a moment, I'll just check who this is. Okay, contemporary issues, something like how we are dealing the pandemic. So you see that human geography relatively is going to be, I won't say simple as compared to physical geography, but I would say it is going to be more logical, and you don't have to go into much of science to understand human geography as such. I would say that people feel human geography is simple basically because they don't concentrate much on the dynamisms of human beings. Okay, because you see that as far as physical geography was concerned, we know that say for example rainfall, there is or water vapor, okay, or the hydrological cycle, for an example, you have a definite sequence. You have evaporation, you have condensation, you have precipitation. Directly from solid to gaseous, you have what is a process which is called as sublimation. Directly from gases to solidifying, it is called as deposition. So there is a definite set of rules of science which are followed as far as the whole process of science or physical geography is concerned. And that at times makes physical geography complex, at that times makes physical geography very interesting and logical also. That absolutely doesn't mean that human geography is not logical, but you'll see that as far as human geography is concerned, it's all about human beings, and one human being is always a very important element of all these systems. Because just a few minutes ago I was speaking about how man impacts. Now, why has man been able to impact in the positive, in the negative sense, whatever it is? How is and why is it that man has been able to impact the environment around him? Why are we living in houses? Why am I speaking to you on an online mode using Google Meet, and you are on your gadgets, I am on my gadgets, but we still are in a connect. Just imagine that. Can ants do this? No. Can lions do this? No. Can elephants do this? No. They may be doing it in a different natural way, which man has not been able to decipher as of late. But the impact that man has had on this planet will obviously show that man has been using this brain as such. And you'll see that every individual has his her own brain. And that is why interpretation of different things that you see around you are going to be different. And that is what makes human processes very complex as such, and that is why you have so many subdivisions. That sociology is looking at human beings from a different point of view, psychology is looking at human beings from a different point of view, history looks at human beings from a different point of view, economics looks at human beings from a different point of view, and you have so many languages. People communicate with each other, and you have so many languages. You are learning quite a few languages in SP College. You have English, you have Marathi, you have Hindi, you have Sanskrit. Of course, you have German also. We don't have French as such, but then there are so many languages as such which we use as medium of exchange. Now you will realize the intensity of understanding human geography as such. I'm slowly getting you into the, say, the intricate network that human geography needs to work around. Okay, and unless and until we understand all the scope of human geography, going into the details of the syllabus is not going to be important, because once you know what actually we are looking at, may it be the population, may it be the settlement, or may it be the economic geography point of view, it would become considerably easy and logical for you all to understand. Now, how do I exemplify this? Now, I'm holding this stylus as such within me. Okay, now if I'm going to take this particular position, and I would ask you all to write one note, one in a couple of sentences, that okay, please write on my position now and what I would be doing in the next few minutes as such. Okay, I'm going to sit still, and in fact you can do it. You don't actually have to write it, but you can think of it that okay, if I'm going to give you a condition wherein I'm going to stay like this for a couple of moments, and then I would ask you all to write down a couple of sentences, that what next? What am I going to do? You'll see that different people will say, put down their sentences in different ways as such. It could be that someone would say that the next thing you would do is you're going to scratch your head with this particular stylus. Somebody would say that, okay, you're going to make a mustache out of this. Somebody would say that you may probably chew with this. Somebody would say that you could probably actually be scratching your ears, or you could be pulling out something from your ear as such, or you could just be knocking your head with this, or you could be actually be writing something for us on the chest, or I could just be throwing it away into some distance as such. I could be opening this to just relieve the cell that is working in this. So you'll see that in fact one individual, okay, as far as I am concerned, and I'm thinking about this, my mind throws up so many options that you would possibly be relating to. Okay, I'm not able to see the number, but when I came onto this particular thing, that's this whole screen as such, I left you all within a number of what, around 58 watching this. So 58 observations could be, it's so very possible that there could be 58 different observations as such, and that's the say the key thing about human nature as such. And that's why it takes so much of time to understand human nature. That's why at times you'll see that you feel that human nature is so very simple. At the same time, you'll see that human nature is so very complex. The complexity of human nature, again coming back to the contemporary issues, the complexity of human nature was seen obviously was seen before the pandemic also, and has been studied, but we were not very cautious about it. But you'll see that during the pandemic, particularly during the lockdown, you'll see that the complexity of human nature was being seen. Some people were taking due, I won't say advantage as such, but they were using it to say to their benefit as such. But others, they went into depression. People had yes, then of course this whole case of people were harping about the fact that when are you opening up the liquor shops, as and the moment the liquor shops were open, you'll see that you had long lines for that, longer lines as compared to people buying day-to-day commodities as such. So you'll see that there's a lot of complexity as far as man understanding these whole things, man and his mind is concerned, and understanding how every individual thinks as such. Okay, the impact that the surroundings would have on a particular thinking, and how while thinking man has an impact on the surrounding issues as such. These are core things that we have to understand before we go into the understanding human geography as such. I'm purposely staying on this, and I'm trying to recollect what are the various ways in which I could be I could actually be letting you know as to how you should be looking at human geography as such. yes, the very fact that you have selected arts, that's the humanities section, means that you are known to a few aspects of human mind and human behavior and so on and so forth. Those who are not, let me tell you that the reason you have taken arts is not with, I do understand that a few students have shifted to arts for various reasons, like they are going for their competitive exams, and some of them, not many, but quite a few of them found science boring, or they found it not very interesting, or they found it very complex as such, or they found it not to be their cup of tea. This, in fact, is again showing us the different nature of, or rather, how a human mind thinks about things around him as such. Okay, so and let me again underliningly say that while we are through human geography, we are going to study human beings as such, but along with that, you have to study, or we are going to study, how the natural part of the of geography is going to impact human beings, and in this process, how human beings have actually impacted the natural parts around us as such. Okay, so the whole complexity of this subject is in fact at times taken to be its simplicity as such. Okay, I've seen, I've heard of many cases wherein a number of teachers say that when I'm speaking about population, uh, yes, when I'm speaking about water vapor, when I'm speaking about global winds, I'm explaining a lot of things to you. But when I see speaking about population, normally what happens is I say that, okay, what should I be telling you about population? You are a part of population, and you understand a lot of things of population. And this is a very unfortunate thing in the sense that we take things because we are human beings, and when we are studying the human part of it, we take a lot of. Somebody is asking me a few questions, or what? We still have some time. Okay, yeah, I'll take you at least for another 5 to 10 minutes before I close off. What was I speaking about? Can somebody please link me to what I was speaking about? I heard those clicks, and that's why I got digressed as such. This is another aspect of human nature. Yeah, what was I speaking about? Can somebody please me unmute and let me know?
Sir, about population.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I was speaking about population, and many a times you'll see that I teach you winds basically because we are not winds, and we need to understand it as a process as such. And when I say population, when I teach population, if I say that, well, you are yourself a part of population, why should you be taught population? You can read it here, you can read it there, you can look at this website, you can look at that website. But then when we speak about population, we fail to understand that population in itself is dynamic. This word, when I say population, normally we come to think of the fact that, yes, sir is speaking about human population. But I could be speaking about population as a statistical term. That's a sample of a particular thing is taken as a population. I could be speaking about population of tigers. I could be speaking about population of ants. I could be speaking about the say the possible number of insects that you have in this world, and so on and so forth. Population has a lot of dimensions, so do settlements also would have. But yes, here we are speaking about human aspect, and we will restrict ourselves to that. But I would tell you all that since you are students of humanities, you should be training your mind to look at things beyond. You should be looking into the processes within them, okay? Processes within population, processes within settlements, and that is how you will learn to analyze things. And it's only then that you would be able to prove your worth coming to humanities and learning humanities, or actually applying humanities into civil services and so on and so forth. You'll see that the very fact that people from technical background, engineers, take up subjects of humanities for UPSC and MPSC, etc., is because of the fact that there is such a dynamism to it. And unless and until you understand the thread which links this dynamism as such, it becomes difficult to actually give an output to the society. Now, what does that output actually mean? I always tell my students that yes, you learn basically because you should be in a position to give some output to the society as such. What is the use that you specialize in economics, and then you are going somewhere and doing a job which is not absolutely related to economics. In that case also, you are actually contributing to the society, but I don't know how many of us would be deriving an actual pleasure out of it. I would actually, I would be in a profession which I'm not doing as a liking. I'm doing it for the salary purpose as such. But just imagine a condition wherein you are able to understand your subject in such a beautiful way that you are able to interpret the importance of your subject in the society. And having done that, you could be in a job which wherein you are serving the society by using your subject and helping the society using your subject as such. Okay, this would give you, and you are into a job like that, you are being paid for that. Say for example, as far as say for example, subject like psychology is concerned, you'll see that nowadays, with all these psychological issues that populations have at various age levels, you have child psychology, you have human psychology, you have male psychology, female psychology, you have the graying population psychology, and you have a lot of consulting psychologists as such. Okay, just imagine somebody who has done psychology at the best level and has understood the subject fantastically, and has his her own consulting clinic, and you are amongst your subject, you are treating people for the reason that you are doing all these things. Coming to my subject, geography, I would say that I somebody likes tourism and goes into the details of understanding tourism, etc., etc. And using that theme, you set up your own company, or you become a guide, guide for a tourist place or tourist spot as such. You become a tourist consultant as such. You like a particular subject and you are into a job of that particular subject. At the same time, you are serving the society also. The society is extracting some benefit out of you. You are of some use to the society as such. This interlinkages will help in the flourishing of your mental health and of course your economic conditions, and you are paying back to the society. At the same time, the society is also taking care of you. Paying back in the sense, why I say you are paying back, basically because of the fact that you are in SP College, you are in a college which is government funded. We get our salaries from the government as such. Now, just imagine that those of who you are in the divisions A, B, and C have paid fees to a particular amount. I'm not referring to those who are in the D division, which is an ungranted division, and you have paid around 20,000 of fees as such. But those who have paid around 10,000 of fees, or I think it's less than that also. And then again, we have some free ships and concessions as far as different categories are concerned as such. Now, just imagine if I'm paying a fee of 5,000 rupees and I'm getting so many teachers to teach me different subjects like history, sociology, geography, psychology, political science, and so on and so forth. Can you imagine that you could hire these people in those 5,000 rupees as such? Okay, and you are coming to an institution where sitting there, you're using the space in a particular classroom. All this is provided to you by the society. The society is dynamic, it is developing, colleges are coming up, and you'll see that the infrastructure, etc., is something that comes up and builds up, wherein the society thinks that, okay, the new generation requires this, and thus you're going to have higher education as such. Your salaries, your fees, sorry, put together will not actually work up to paying our salaries as such. So what I mean to be paying back is that it's since you're getting all these facilities at a very subsidized rate. Higher education in India is extremely subsidized. You can compare the rates with European universities and American universities. And Pat, could be an answer from any one of you, sir. What about the standard of education? When I'm saying standard of education, you are only thinking of a few top few universities like the Cambridge or the Oxford in UK, or you are speaking about the Harvard, or you are speaking about what the Harvard and a few more well-known universities in the US as such. At the same time, you have many other universities which are at an average level. Okay, you come to India, you have these IITs and IIMs, and of course you have these medical science colleges as such. Coming to humanities, yes, you have colleges like SP. I would say yes, definitely. We are giving you a lot of content. You have Ferguson, you have SP within Maharashtra. You would have Xavier's in Mumbai, and of course you will have Lady Shri Ram, and you have the Presidency. All these colleges are known for its education, but you see that all these colleges provide education at a very subsidized rate. Okay, so it's the duty of every student attending classes that he learns the subjects he opts for. We don't ask you to do everything. We give you choice. So you opt for certain subjects. You have to learn these subjects in the best possible way. And having understood these subjects, you have to apply the subject into into the world once you have graduated, or once you have mastered the art of learning your own subject as such. So that's called as paying back as such. The more sincerely you apply this, the more worth you are going to give to the investment that the government makes into the sectors of education and so on and so forth. So as I said, and I've been for the last 40 minutes, I've been speaking about how human systems work, how human systems involve so many things. So obviously human geography cannot be an exclusive thing out of it. It's a part of it, and we are going to learn all these things much in detail when we move on. Of course, I'm going to stop here for the day as such, and then I'll come back. And coming back to the fact that when we are speaking about all these things, when we meet tomorrow, you're not going to have your lecture. Day after tomorrow, we're going to meet at 7 o'clock, and I purposely have kept it at 7 o'clock. I want to see how many of you all. I knew that you would be longing to attend lectures because you have had a long break due to exams, etc., etc., and possibly the number being very high today is one of that. And I would actually want to see how many of you all turn up at 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturday as such. While I do this, I would also let you know that just as we had those documentaries on physical part of geography, yes, I have very interesting documentaries on the human part of geography also. I would bring them up, and in fact, I would like you all to see those. And in fact, I would schedule times. Okay, what I've done with other classes is that I'm watching it with them on Sundays as such. So just in case we could come up with something like a film club for FIBA in geography as such, we could be watching a few more documentaries, and you would have a few more options to write up your assignments and submitting them as far as your internal work for this particular semester is concerned. Yes, I have been a bit hurried today, but then I would things will settle down, and yes, we would go into further details of the syllabus, not before we have understood and actually connected to what actually all this makes, all this part human geography is made up of. Okay, you'll see that I have spoken for nearly 45 minutes, but I have not gone into the details of the syllabus as such. Okay, so that in itself could be a matter of fact that this subject is going to be equally interesting as you found physical geography as such. I would, on my part, try to make it as interesting as possible for you all also as such. Thank you for being there for this particular lecture. We'll be stopping here. I'll be, of course, posting the link for tomorrow. Those who are interested to hear the Vice Chancellor speaking on geomorphology, you could be joining the meeting using the Google Meet link as such. That's all for today. We're not meeting tomorrow officially for our geography lecture. We are meeting Saturday at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much. Stay safe and stay healthy. I'll be shutting off the recording right now, and you can start